Welcome to First. I'm Mark Eichman along with Shirley Min and Nichelle Polston. 1 year ago this week, Donald Trump shocked many in the political world with his presidential victory. It's even had an effect on Delaware politics. A look at the Trump impact on 2018 and beyond.
The impact of the first woman as chief of the Nanticoke Indian tribe in Delaware is now considered just a natural event. But there's something to be said for breaking centuries of tradition.
It wasn't that long ago when hip-hop might have been considered a passing fad. Now it is a part of tradition and culture, and some Delaware students explore all of that. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
Nationally, this has been quite a week for the Trump administration, and coincidentally, this week marks 1 year since voters elected Donald Trump president. Opinions on the president's performance vary from group to group and person to person. This week's First Look examines the Trump impact in Delaware and what the future holds for Election Day next year.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Complicated business. Complicated.
1 year ago, Donald Trump captured the White House with more than 300 electoral votes. That night, he called for unity.
Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division. Have to get together. To all Republicans and Democrats and independents across this nation, I say it is time for us to come together as one united people.
But a year later, lots of Delawareans say they haven't seen that unity effort.
I'm disappointed by what I'm seeing out of Washington, and that has nothing, well, it has a great deal to do with what we're seeing in terms of leadership.
Trump's supporters aren't happy with division in D.C. either.
Everybody's a little distraught. You wish that Congress would be more receptive and more, I guess, open to his ideas and trying to work with him. Given what he's had to work with, I think he's done a great job. Of course, legislatively, you want to see more things being passed, but there are a few in both parties who are holding his agenda up.
There is a trickle-down Trump effect on Delaware politics, too. In early 2017, Democrat Stephanie Hansen won a special election for state Senate that drew national attention as one of the first contests in the U.S. after the election. Hansen defeated Republican John Marino in the most expensive special election in state history.
It's really disappointing to me personally. You know, I'm involved politically for many years here in Delaware, and you know, the sense of civility and positive temperament has disappeared, and it's a real shame.
Republican leaders like Trump's Delaware campaign chief Rob Arlett see last year's election as a stepping stone for future GOP wins in Delaware. He spoke in August at a Republican rally in Sussex County, where Trump beat Hillary Clinton by 20 percentage points.
It is time for change in Delaware. And you know what? They're scared and they know it. And all they keep doing is going right back to their well that's about to be dried out, because we are waking up as a state and we know what's going on, and we're going to hold their feet accountable.
He is remaking the face of Washington, D.C. and the way politics works. Never before in the history of our country has somebody who had no political experience been elected president of the United States. So I think there's some resentment on both sides of the aisle to his coming in and trying to rock the boat.
That rocking the boat has drawn the ire of many in Delaware, including Insurance Commissioner Trinidad Navarro, who questioned Trump's tactics of alternately attacking the Affordable Care Act and then negotiating changes to the law.
He's either an evil genius to come up with the plan to cut the payments to force both sides to work together, right, or he's just evil.
Of course, President Trump is very vocal about who he supports and who he doesn't support, and he's not one to mince words either. And I think that has rubbed some folks on both sides of the political aisle wrong, I mean, badly, just because they're not used to it.
Some say Trump's frequent use of social media to call out his opponents has a detrimental impact on the level of political conversation.
You know, I think that social media has really had a play in this thing, and what it's done is it's served to polarize people, I think, to a significant degree. And so what you end up doing is you spend your time looking and finding support from what other people think that are like-minded thinkers, rather than reaching out and trying to better understand other points of view.
And after that record-setting special election, former Delaware GOP Chairman Charlie Copeland summed up what will determine Trump's enduring legacy.
Everybody loves a winner. If we're in 2018 and America's a winner again, nobody's going to be talking about whether, Trump's personality this or Nancy Pelosi's personality that or the, crooked media this or that. They're going to be like, America's winning again, and we like that message.
The political division in Delaware and around the country was highlighted this week in a national poll from the University of Delaware's Center for Political Communication. The poll asked not just about how much voters trust politicians from another party, it asked how voters trust other voters in another party. It found that 72% of Republicans distrust voters who voted for Hillary Clinton. Meanwhile, 70% of Democrats distrust voters who voted for President Trump.
So then looking forward towards the 2018 midterm elections, what does all of this division mean?
It's a big question mark. Midterms usually mean for a new president a swing for the opposition party, so you'd expect the Democrats to pick up some seats in Congress. We'll be watching that and see if that actually does happen. Senator Carper is up for re-election, as is Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester here. So it'll be interesting to see what level of candidate the Republicans are able to put forward as challengers to those. In the General Assembly, there's also a number of several high-profile Democratic senators who have been there for a long time retiring, so those seats to be open. Republicans really kind of salivating over that, hoping to make this their chance to make big gains in the General Assembly this year.
And when you turn on the cable news networks, a lot of times we are seeing Delaware Senator Chris Coons always offering a point of view on issues facing the Trump administration, and we're seeing him a lot here.
Yeah, he's in our studios all the time, right, for sure. And he's one of those voices trying to keep things on a level playing field, trying to be the voice of reason from the opposition side to the Trump administration. He's not up for re-election, so it will be interesting to see if he can maintain that approach going forward into election season.
Okay, thanks so much, Mark. There's a lot going on in the Trump administration. Follow it all at our new online news home, WHYY.org/news. Coming up on First, Mead, anyone? First Experience is in Milton, where the ancient brew is making new converts today. And hip-hop takes over a Delaware campus with a stream of exhibits, history, and music.
Education policy and legislation has long been a passion of State Senator Dave Sokola. Chairman of the Senate Education Committee, Sokola is our first person this week. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, Governor Carney has made it his mission to reform 5 high-poverty, low-performing schools in Wilmington that are part of the Christina School District. You were at his community meeting last week at Bayard Middle School. What are your thoughts about this latest effort to improve struggling schools like Bayard, where 2% of the kids are proficient in math, 5% in English, but 98% get promoted year after year?
I think his process is a big improvement. Sometimes the policy can be right, but the process needs to involve all the stakeholders so that you get ownership of what you decide. And there's a lot of different ways you can turn around a school, but whatever the decisions are made, in order for them to be implemented in a way with fidelity, you have to have that stakeholder involvement and support. And that can be a messy process.
After the meeting, I asked Carney about, what kind of system do we have where proficiency is so low, but, everybody gets promoted on to the next grade. And he said it borders on being immoral.
You have to identify students where they are and try to make progress from there, try to make regular efforts to improve what they know and what they can do. So that you can justify those decisions at the end of the year.
And I know you followed our recent story on the exodus of students from the district. Nearly 4 in 10 go to either charter schools or they choose to schools outside the district. Can they reverse this trend, or are they going to have to close perhaps one of the high schools where there's, I think, 1,700 or 2,700 empty seats?
Yeah, if your options are very limited if your high school population gets very low. You can run a successful high school with that doesn't have a lot of students, but it's so much better if you want to offer a variety of foreign languages, a variety of advanced placement options, and so they have to work with the community. This is what we call the messy part. And you're never going to get full consensus. But if you get a critical mass of stakeholder support, the change can then be sustainable. If you don't, you'll change, but you're going to have to change again in a couple of years. And this is where Christina's had their problems in the past. And I'm a little bit more optimistic about the process that's being used this time than previously.
Now, Christina wouldn't provide an estimate or any documentation about what it cost to maintain Christiana High School last year. Now, this is a school with just 700 kids, 44% of capacity. What do you think about this? Is this the kind of transparency we want in Delaware, or you want as a legislator?
So, no, I would like to see more transparency than that. And also, after reading your article, I looked back at their website because I remember they had a strategic plan, a 2014 to 2017 strategic plan. And clearly, Freedom of Information Act does not require an entity to create a document that's requested. If they have a document, they have to provide it. If you look at their strategic plan and the kinds of things that were in there, it would seem intuitively obvious that they would create a document that either would answer the questions you asked or come pretty close, and they could have offered that and said, is this okay? Right now they're a little bit on the defensive, so maybe it wasn't a real good time to ask for that, but I would hope that openness and transparency and inclusiveness are a big part of them going forward.
So just real quick, budget season coming up. You had $26 million last year. What do you think's looming in this next budget cycle?
The first DFAC was a little more encouraging, but you know there are some nuanced reasons why, and so we'll see with the next one where we go. Representative Earl Jakes and I both chair the Education Committee. We met yesterday with the combined school chiefs group and with the Newcastle County Business Partnership. The school chiefs' #1 priority is restoration of that money. That's a reasonable request on their part. We've had a task force from back when Markell was governor about the sustainability of our revenues. That's a big challenge, and we know that there's the system needs to be changed a little bit to make for more sustainability in our revenue stream.
Okay, well, as always, we could talk all day, but time is running short. So, Dave Sokola is a state senator representing the Newark and Hockessin area. See our full interview online at WHYY.org/news.
The 40th annual Nanticoke Indian Powwow took place in September with one noticeable change. The leader of Delaware's Native American tribe is Chief Natasha Norwood Carmine. She's the first woman to have that title. Her mission is that future generations know their Nanticoke heritage. It's our November collaboration with Delaware Today magazine.
My name is Natasha Norwood Carmine, and I'm chief of the Nanticoke Indian. I represent and I protect the Nanticokes. I work with the tribal council, and I basically execute the desires of the people. It's very important that our younger generations understand and realize their heritage, their culture, their traditions. And as a First People, we do not want our heritage or our Nanticoke background to be extinct. We want it to carry on.
Chief Carmine also wants to make sure the next generation of Nanticoke is appreciative.
I grew up in a home where we didn't discuss being Native American. We didn't discuss that we would or could have been Nanticoke. It wasn't until 1977 that came to light for us. And when that came to light, I was about 22, and I was a little resentful that I hadn't grown up knowing the Native American culture. I have cousins and that who lived it, you know, because their grandparents passed it down to them. Their grandparents were the ones who, I say fought, but they dealt with our struggles in such a way that they were the ones who walked to Dover in 1881 to sign what we call the 1881 Agreement, which gave us our first document of state recognition.
The passing down of traditions and culture is sacred to the Nanticoke.
I believe that if we bring more events, more activities to our cultural center that we are targeting towards our youth and towards our elders, that we can bring a unity back. We just celebrated our 40th consecutive powwow on the property just off of John J. Williams Highway and Mount Joy Road. And to celebrate the powwow for me is a coming together of all of our people with our sister tribes, with other tribes that we, interact with their powwows, to come together. I think bringing back those identities of a Native American culture, the Nanticoke culture, along with just some fundamental life skills that they will be able to develop, to grow, to have their self-confidence and their esteem are what's most important to me right now.
Joining us now is Suzanne Harrell, who wrote Looking Forward, the article in the Delaware Today magazine. Suzanne, great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
In your interview that you did with her, did she ever explain what it is like being the first female chief?
Well, it's interesting because that was my first question, and in fact, obviously the reason that I approached the article. And she basically said, as opposed to what? I've been a woman my whole life, and I'm chief. This is how I'm approaching it. And when she said that, I thought, you know what, you're right. And she kind of didn't really get all of the hullabaloo about being the first female, which I thought was a neat way to approach it, because she's not governing the tribe as a woman. She's governing the tribe as a Nanticoke and as a very strong person who cares about the heritage and the people.
And speaking of governing the tribe, in your article you said she abides by this 7th generation principle. Mm-hmm. Explain what that means.
I thought that was really neat and something that we could all take a lesson from. It's basically when she is faced with making a decision, whether business or social or large or small, she thinks about what are the effects of this decision likely on the next 7 generations to come. Wow. Because it's not our world. It's something that we all share, and we don't have a right to make a decision that will be bad for the generations to come. And so that's her worldview, is not just the people that she knows now that she's governing, but the look toward the future of people that she won't ever meet.
She sounds really cool. What was the vibe that you got from her?
She is I keep coming back to the word centered. She's just a very centered person. And it's really neat to sit down with her and talk with her. She's very deliberate about the way she thinks and governs the tribe, and she kind of just exudes this. She's very centered and just very very caring and thoughtful. She's very thoughtful about it all.
Well, it was a very interesting read.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, Suzanne Harrell of Delaware Today. Thanks again. And you can find the story online at delawaretoday.com.
The Vikings have landed in Delaware, and no, we're not talking about the NFL team. The Birmingham Eatery is brewing up the ancient drink known as mead and serving it in their Norse-inspired tasting room in Milton. The idea is 20 years in the making, so come along for our first experience.
Welcome to Birmingham Eatery. The Birmingham Eatery is 15 years of mead making. It was a dream that I had to open a meadery, and now it's finally open. Mead is the oldest alcoholic beverage. It's essentially wine made from honey. It goes back over 9,000 years ago. Essentially what mead is, it's just honey, water, and yeast and the fermentation process. I got into making mead from reading mythology. I was always interested in Nordic mythology and Beowulf, Norse tales, Greek myths, and things like that. And mead is mentioned in a lot of those old stories. I'm pretty creative. I'm very artistic. I like to cook, so a lot of my mead recipes have to do with things I've cooked, or desserts, or things I'm reading about in history. So I just put it all together. It's a little bit of myth, a little bit of magic, a little bit of science. I've won awards at Meadlennium. It's a competition in Florida. Mead Free or Die. It's for commercial and amateur mead makers. And I've took 2 best of shows at that competition, so I was very proud of that. The little cups, those are Mazer cups. That's the biggest mead competition in the world, and I've won 2 Mazer cups at that, so I'm very proud of that. Wanted to kind of look like an old Viking hall, but have a modern appeal to it. So that's why we chose brighter colors and lots of woodwork, and we wanted it to be kind of lively and fun inside, but still give it that old world character. The reaction has been great. People come in and they're kind of wowed by the mead hall, itself. They're looking around and they look at all the carvings and the woodwork and the bar.
It is really good. I like beer, and I've heard a lot about mead, and just thought I'd try it. It's pretty amazing. And it gives you that feel, that Scandinavian feel. When you think about mead, you think about the Vikings and them sitting around a big fire in a big hall, and I think it's really cool.
These are a nice balance. What they say they're going to taste like, they actually do. These guys are real friendly, they're real helpful, and they definitely get a good product.
You feel like a Viking today?
Oh, I do. I need my horns.
It's very exciting. It's very humbling. I never thought my mead would be like being served to the public, because it was always like something I made for at home and family and shared with my friends, and it's just very exciting. I hope that they think it's special and they can see that the work and the passion behind it. I hope that brings them some joy, because they're drinking something that's very ancient but created in a new way.
Both John and his business partner Robert have been in the brewing business for more than 15 years, and when not working in the meadery, they both work at Milton's Dogfish Head Brewery. The Birmingham Meadery is open Friday through Sunday each week. You can get more information when you visit them online at birminghornmeadery.com.
Some University of Delaware students pay tribute to a type of music that's slightly over 40 years old. They do so with creativity, art, and education.
It wasn't until the late 70s when rap went mainstream, but before then, the pioneers of hip-hop showed off their skills in the Bronx, giving birth to music that still influences today's culture.
Hip-hop is freedom. It's freedom to be who I am. It's freedom for me to be able to express my thoughts, my opinions, unapologetically.
The evolution of hip-hop is important to a group of University of Delaware students who decided to take people on a journey through exhibits and some dance performances. Though this scene looks like one big party, the goal, according to Edward Franklin of UD's Cultural Advisory Board, is to educate students often misinformed about the music.
Hip-hop has been an integral part of, I would say, the African American community for over the past 40 years. It's been able to connect to a bunch of different political and social injustices, and it's something that our students connect to.
To further connect students, every decade in hip-hop is represented. From the 70s to the 2000s, several things here, like these old vinyl records, are just synonymous with hip-hop.
Everything we do in this time is influenced by the past, so 90s is really big for this time period for us.
The visual exhibit definitely caught the attention of one student who says he was drawn to hip-hop at an early age.
I'm a lover of hip-hop. Hip-hop really raised me alongside my parents. I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, but I discovered hip-hop at a very young age. And as an adolescent, male, growing up, learning a lot of values, you could either be, straight one way or straight the other. And I think hip-hop was there.
Obi even names a few of his all-time favorites.
We can take it back and say KRS-One. We can talk about the Outkast. We can even talk about the Sugar Hill Gang, really. Everything in between.
As for what time period students enjoyed the most, it was a tie between two decades.
I've had fun doing the 70s and 80s just because researching the fashion and the trends that were going on during that time, it really shows how our trends in fashion haven't changed much, and I have witnessed where it may have started.
However, some question whether or not hip-hop is headed in the right direction.
It's a bit different now. It still serves its purpose, which is primarily for people to be able to express themselves and to be able to use their voice. The message has just changed over time, and I would say it's probably a big contributor is, the life and the day and age that we're currently in today.
And if these students can help it, hip-hop is here to stay.
Every semester, the Cultural Advisory Board worked to put on at least one educational event to bring students together while having fun at the same time.
And next week on First, we go behind the scenes to see how art is prepared and restored for a major exhibition at the Delaware Art Museum. And as Delaware's population ages, we visit with Delaware Hospice on ways they're adapting to that change.
And before we go, we also want to put in a plug for our new online news home, WHYY.org/news. Earlier this week, we covered an appearance by former Vice President Joe Biden. He covered a number of topics. One of them was his involvement in changing the way sexual harassment of women is treated in society.
I think you'd have to admit, in the last 15 years, in the last 5 years, the attitude toward harassment and violence against women has been made a public enemy. Now we're focusing on the perpetrator instead of the woman. Things are beginning to change. And I'm determined to be part of that change, to make sure the culture is changed. So the pariah is the abuser.
That appearance was at the University of Delaware. You can read more on his speech at WHYY.org/news. That is First for this week. We thank you for watching. For Chris Barish, Nichelle Polston, and Shirley Min, I'm Mark Eichman. Have a great week.